that would not have been a good start to things. Thank you all so much for being here. It's so fun to see familiar faces. I was mentioning to Ashley and Gina that I have some anxiety, a lot of anxiety, and so public speaking certainly triggers that, and so it's just nice looking out and seeing so many people that I recognize. Makes me feel like we're just hanging out. So thank you for coming. Thank you for the reunion. It's so great to have you all here. So I'm going to start by just talking a little bit about my inspiration for the book. And so I have been a psychotherapist for 17 years, which is hard to believe. Sometimes I feel like I'm still in my 20s, and then the mirror reminds me, no, sweetie, no, you're not, right? So it has been 17 years, and in that 17 years, I've learned a lot about relationships. As I sit with people in different stages of their exploration and growth processes, you learn a lot about what brought them to your therapy couch. And so as I was doing this early on in my career, I was realizing that there were actually a lot of people who were coming to therapy looking to fill a friendship void. And so people were coming looking for someone to listen, like really listen to their stories and like really care about their stories. They were looking for people to offer them, what we call in the field, unconditional positive regard, but basically emotional safety. And they weren't finding that out in the world. And so they were coming, spending money to try to find that thing that was missing within the therapy context. And so in my book, I tell a story about one specific client who was just a dear woman. She was in her 50s, and she felt a really strong connection to me and to our process, and I really enjoyed working with her. And I remember a few months into our process, she invited me to go to a movie with her. And it was a movie that, honestly, I really wanted to see. And if we hadn't been in a therapist-client relationship, we probably would have gone to see that movie together. But I don't know how many of you know this, but being a professional therapist means that there's something that we call dual relationships. And dual relationships are a no-no. And what that means is that I can't be your therapist and go to movies with you. And a lot of that has to do with concerns about a power dynamic that could potentially play out. But also, let's just be honest, the person that I am in a friendship requires reciprocation. The person that I am as a therapist requires no reciprocation. In a therapy process, it's all about you, and rightfully so. In a friendship process, there's give and take. And so I said to my client, I'm so sorry. As much as I think that would probably be a really delightful experience, I'm not ethically permitted to go to a movie with you. And she cried. And she cried hard, sad tears. And I obviously felt horrible. And I used that moment to get some clarity about what had created that strong emotional response. And I had this 50-year-old woman sit in front of me in tears and tell me that she'd never had close connected friendships in her entire life, that she didn't know how to, and any attempts that she'd made to have those kind of connections had left her feeling destined to be alone permanently. And so obviously that left a mark on me as a therapist, but also as a person. And so I started to pay closer attention as my clients were telling their stories. And I started to notice that there was a pattern. And the pattern was there were a lot of people who did not have close, intimate friendships. And so I kept seeing this play out over and over again. And I thought to myself, is there something that I can do? So beyond offering empathy and tools for more healthy friendship making, is there something else that I can do? And so I committed to doing some research. What's going on within our society that could be creating this barrier to intimate friendships? what do I know about my own friendship making journey that could help me better understand and help? And so as I continued to do this and as I continued to do research, I realized that this was not an issue that was going away. This was an issue that was growing exponentially over time. There were research projects that put the number at 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4, who had no intimate, connected friendships in their life. And I just thought, like, what? That's too many. Like, that's too many people that don't have a person to call and cry with on the worst day, and a person to call and like wildly crazy celebrate on the good days. Like, that's too many people that don't have those kind of connections. And so as Providence would have it, around that same time, I got invited to speak at a large women's conference. And the topic of that conference was friends, yes. It was friendships and healthy relationships. And so in preparation for that, I came up with a set of criteria based on feedback that I'd received, based on my own research, both academic and sociological. And so I came up with a list of 5 things, I call them my 5 A's of healthy, authentic friendships. And that became the bones of this book. So really quickly, I want to run through those 5 criteria that I think are just kind of essential and that I believe when work together give us the best chance for a firm foundation for friendship. And so first of all, and probably goes without saying, though we do neglect it too often, we need to be available. We need to be available for our friends. We need to show up. We need to spend time. We need to have celebrations. We need to have getaways. We need to do all of these things that foster intimacy and connectedness. We need to issue invitations. And that kind of is the foundation of friendship, because if we don't spend time together, then all the rest of the stuff is, pretty moot, right? So we need to be available. Next, we need to be authentic. If we're going to have deep connections, we've got to get real, right? I mean, this means committing to mutual honesty. It means mutual vulnerability. I know that's a scary word for a lot of us, but that is what is required, I think, to have the authenticity that we need to have these deeper, more meaningful friendships. The third thing I think is we need to be affirming. We need to be able to say, "You're awesome. Man, I love that new dress. Wow, you have the best sense of humor." I think so many times we think these things, right? We pass someone or we overhear someone or we have an interaction with someone and we think, wow, that person is awesome, and all these variety of ways, but we're not very good at actually letting the words come out of our mouth, right? So we think it, but too often we don't say it. And I have found that affirmation is needed to create safe, encouraging spaces, which is where I think these friendships thrive. I think next we need to be assertive. Who loves that word? Anybody love the word assertive?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I always have one, and usually only one. Usually when I see the word assertive, people are like, "Ah," because assertive equals what? Confrontation, right? And that can feel a little bit scary. It can be even more scary because I think sometimes we have the tendency to misunderstand the line between assertive and aggressive. And so some people are being aggressive while proudly wearing an assertiveness badge. And I don't know if I'm talking to anyone in particular.
I agree.
And so I think really, in order for us to get our needs met in relationships, and in order for us to meet other people's needs, we have to tell people what we need and want, right? There is this thing out there where people should be able to read our minds, and they should be able to anticipate our needs. And I'm going to tell you, and this is not scientifically proven, but this is my own opinion, 99% of the time, that fantasy is only going to lead to a lot of disappointment. So if you need something, if you want something in your relationships, you got to ask for that stuff. You got to be clear. In addition to that, I also think that we need to feel comfortable sharing our opinions in this current political, social climate that feels a little bit scary. I get it. I am timid myself at times. But in real friendships, we have to be able to share real thoughts and real feelings about real things and real life. And so the hope is that if we are assertive in healthy ways, that we are creating environments which protect and preserve our friendships. Because my general sense is that without assertiveness, without us being honest about our needs and our thoughts and our wants, that really we have something really shallow, and usually that is not really fulfilling. So next, we need to be accepting, right? We need to recognize the potential in new friendships, especially friendships with people who may not think and look and act exactly like us. We need to be open, right? We need to listen to people's stories, and we need to accept that there are people who think about life differently than us, and they may be a great asset to our friendship circle. Because goodness knows, we could all stand to learn and grow a little bit more, right? Or maybe it's just me. But I would also say acceptance also means grace, right? So we are going to have differences in our friendships, and we need to know how to have grace within the context of our potential differences. And so let's be available, let's be authentic, let's be affirming, let's be assertive, and let's be accepting. So on that note, I'm going to transition to a reading from my book. This reading is from my section on affirmation. And, you know, as I've said, I just think affirmation is just so vitally important, both in, you know, fostering intimate friendships, but also just in the world in general. I feel like I say out into the void 100 times a day, be kind out there, people. There's enough meanness, and there's enough criticism, and there's enough people who want to tear you down. Be the person who is affirming other people. So, with that in mind, I'm going to read you a little something. This is called Dr. Cool Boots, Becoming Fluent in Affirmation. I dream of a world where affirmation flows easily and often from our mouths, where we are purposefully on the lookout for chances to extend this goodness to others, where compliments are the norm and everyone gives and receives them on the regular, where we notice someone's beautiful smile or their sense of humor or their stylish outfit, and we actually say it out loud. Because I have come to understand that the affirmations we speak can dramatically change someone's day, our own included. And they can have a contagious effect on the world around us. Affirmation can spread from one giver to one recipient, from that recipient to another recipient, and so it can continue. As with most practices, we will become more fluent in affirmation the more we give and receive it. It's like a foreign language in that way. When you initially start speaking a different language, it might feel awkward or uncomfortable. But with time and practice, it becomes easier and easier until we can speak more naturally and confidently. And I find that the same is true of affirmation. If we commit to the practice, we will find it becoming more organic with each use. Earlier this year, I made a visit to my local urgent care. And my assigned doctor of the day was a bit terse. Professional, but not friendly at all. I'm not one who responds well to feeling completely emotionally detached from my care providers, especially when my physical well-being feels compromised by the detachment, so I knew I needed to turn things around stat. Then the proverbial clouds parted, and I noticed that my doctor was wearing the coolest boots. Not necessarily urgent care appropriate, mind you, but super cool. And so I complimented him. And oh my goodness, the entire tone of our interaction changed instantaneously. He started showing off his boots like a proud schoolboy. He even strutted around the room, I kid you not, to show them off a little more, all the while sporting this huge smile, which I had not seen up to that point. It changed my entire visit moving forward, both in regards to how he interacted with me and how thorough he was in my treatment planning. Now, I'm not going to pass judgment, at least not in this moment, on whether or not it was fair for me to be responsible for offering affirmation to my doctor when I was the one who was sick, but I will tell you confidently that I don't regret a thing. The situation at urgent care was such a potent reminder of the power of affirmation in changing the dynamics of an interaction. I had become a bit detached from my affirmation language during that time, as I was dealing with a long list of my own stuff at the time of this visit. But I was incredibly grateful for the opportunity to recommit to noticing the beauty in those around me and to speaking it, even if the opportunity did not necessarily come in the way I might have anticipated or desired. If the idea of practicing your affirmation language with strangers sends you into a panic, then I would recommend that you start with friends and family. It makes sense that we would feel most comfortable making a commitment to regularly complimenting the people closest to us before branching out to local bank tellers and baristas and doctors with cool boots. So start wherever you are most comfortable and grow your affirmation skills from there. If you are someone who struggles to find appropriate affirmations in the moment, let me offer a little help. I really admire how you share so openly and honestly about your thoughts and feelings when we're all together. I think it makes us all feel more comfortable being open in response. Thank you for contributing so thoughtfully and intelligently to conversations that can sometimes be tricky to negotiate. You do such a great job of finding and sharing joy with the people around you. I am so grateful for your amazing sense of humor. After the difficult time I've been having lately, it's just so refreshing. Wow, you are such a rock star. Going back to school while also working and volunteering cannot be easy. You inspire me. Healthy affirmations are about noticing and verbalizing our friends' admirable attributes and accomplishments. So if you are struggling to find an affirmation for someone, ask yourself, what do I most admire about my friend? And then tell them. So that is one of my favorite stories in the book. That is a real story that happened to me. I had a real doctor with real cool boots. That was all very real. I do want to offer you one more treat. I don't know, has anyone here written a book?
I tried him.
Yeah, how'd it go?
Yes.